And good afternoon, everybody. It's 12:30 Pacific time. This is ALPOUGH. Welcome to ALPOUGH. Hope you're having a great day. Uh, Boy, there's so much going on in the news today. I just decided that we need to talk about some things. And today, I'm here to talk about Dave Chappelle. There's Dave behind me. I'm standing in front of Dave. Dave Chappelle is here to tell. Now, I've seen Dave Chappelle. I saw him do stand up here at the where was it? The Harris Casino. He actually came here. I was shocked that he came out into this small little town here. He didn't actually know where he was. He thought he was in Phoenix, and so I went to go see Dave Chappelle. So if anybody knows, if you've probably heard of him in the news lately, but he's been around for quite a while. Dave has probably been doing comedy for probably 30 years, somewhere in that range. And he's been what I would consider very successful. Some have called him the king of comedy. He took the place of Richard Pryor, who was a voice back in the day. Now, I spent my adult life in Los Angeles, and of course, Richard Pryor was around there then, and he was the one to kind of see. But there's been other comedians that have told it like it is, and there's a lot of them out there. There's all kinds of different comedians out there. I'm a closet comedian. I've done comedy in the past. Had some good times. Bombed a few times. And it's not easy doing a stand-up. Matter of fact, I'm continuing on in my process to do it. So, Dave Chappelle. Dave Vidcari Weber Chappelle is an American stand-up comedian, actor, writer, and producer. He is the recipient of numerous accolades, including 5 Emmy Awards and 3 Grammy Awards, as well as the coveted Mark Twain Prize. He is known for his satirical comedy sketch series, Chappelle Show. Now he is now known not for the Chappelle Show, but for his stand-up on Netflix. So he's been doing I think he's done about 4 or 5. This was, I'm not sure of the number here. It might be his 4th or his 5th, but it was actually, he said, his last one. So the closer, if you haven't heard about it, you probably have. It's called The Closer. Okay. And it is on Netflix. So, I consider Dave Chappelle to be a great comedian. Like I said, I've actually seen him, and his act is very incredible because it's almost as if he doesn't prepare. He comes out and he just kind of feels the audience. Now, this is when he's on the road, but I'm sure his he has it prepared, but again, it just seems like he just comes right off the cuff. Now, I want to say this, having gone to one of Dave's show. Now, again, he's a black man, and I would say to you that the audience was 90% Caucasian. So if you look at his audience, even in the closer, it looked like 90% of the people in the audience were Caucasian. And what this just kind of means is he's able to cross over. So one of the things that I think is one of Dave's special gifts is his ability to cross over, and that he can relate to everyone. And to me, that really says something. about him and about the actual audience that comes to see him. Now, let me just say, the tickets were $190 to go see him. So people are paying big money to go see Mr. Chappelle. And so, he's not cheap. All right? So, and he would laugh about that. He'd make jokes about it. What he said, his joke was, "Oh, I see a lot of white people out here. That's good for my gross national product." Okay. Because a lot of people like me, they can't afford the tickets. So I'm glad, for Caucasian people. So, now his parents are very well educated. Okay. He comes from a very educated family. His mother was a teacher. I think his father was too. And Dave started doing stand-up at 14 years old. Now, having done comedy, to get up there at 14 years old really just tells you a lot about him knowing what he was wanting to do, and that his parents supported them. Now, I want to say they were teachers. Both of them are teachers, so they're very educated. And so, the decision for them to support them was his idea. They told him, "You got to get a real job." And he says, "Well, let's just say my stand-up, I could make as much as your salary, your teacher salary," which wasn't much if you were a teacher. You know that. Teachers don't get paid that much, especially back then. So, and that was the button that his parents said, "Well, okay, all right." And they supported him. Didn't have to. So he comes from a really good background of support. And so what this does is it made his experience is vast. So he's been everywhere, all over the world. And so, for him to come from this experience is what made the Chappelle show very successful. Now, if I saw it, I would falling on the floor. One of the things he did was he was a blind Ku Klux Klan person. That was one of his skits, because he was blind and all he was doing was going by what he heard about black people. And it was very controversial, but also very, very effective. And he's done a lot of these things that are there to push the buttons of everyone. Now, when it came time to renew the Chappelle show, Dave was offered up to $20 million back then in the early 2000s. A lot of money. Of course, it's a lot of money now. He gave up doing it because the network wanted to censor him. And so, he didn't want to go by his principles. And again, what does that tell you about someone who's not about just the money? Now, of course, he came back and Netflix took the money. More power to him. Everybody has to make a living. But the one thing that I want to say to everybody, that we have a First Amendment. All right? The First Amendment. And that's freedom of speech. So I'm here to say Dave Chappelle, no matter what he said, he has the First Amendment. And even if you don't agree, you don't have to watch. And that's really what's great about being an American. You don't like it, you don't have to watch it. Right? You don't like it, you don't have to watch it. So in his show, The Closer, Dave made some very troubling bits. Now, if you follow Dave, which I have, troubling bits. I mean, it's just that I think Dave has gotten mega famous, so he's got a lot of people definitely coming after him. So, instead of calling it The Closer, his line was, and I think is what he should have named the show, not The Closer, but It Gets Worse Than That. And this was his line throughout the show. It gets worse than that. So no matter what he was talking about. So we're going to go over a few of his bits, that just a few that came out very controversial. I want to talk about it. One was, he said he was molested by a preacher. And as we know, now he said a preacher, and he didn't say a priest. He said a preacher. All right? So he did not say a priest. I was raised Catholic. So there's been a whole controversy about priests. By the way, I never was molested by a priest. All the priests I ever grew up with were all really great. Taught me a lot. So he says he was molested by a preacher. But instead of talking about it like other people who've been molested, he actually came out and said he liked it. And that's what caused a lot. All right. So that was kind of the first one that he said. And now, again, it's a little edgy for me, just because it speaks of other things. That's the possibility of being molested, that you might actually like it as a child. These are the things that I thought was a little bit over the top. But again, if you get it, it was a joke. He just did it for a laugh. Now, I'm not here to defend him. I'm just saying this is the bit. And people, they didn't boo. They actually went, oh my gosh. And, of course, the way Dave says things, he makes you laugh. So another thing that he came out and he talked about, he said, he made the statement about, well, there's a lot of blacks beating up on Asians. So he said, basically said that a lot of my black people are beating up on a lot of my Asian people. That's how he prefaces it. All right. And so then it was like, where's he going here? And so again, what he said was that he enjoyed it some. That he kind of enjoyed them beating up these. First of all, you see, if you've seen any of the media coverage, it's been older Asians that are getting beat up. And of course, he was saying this as a joke, but again, it could be caused one way or the other. Now, Dave Chappelle is a comedian, and that's what he is. But he has this ego in his own sense that he can say what he wants. Although I know, he calls it, I go hard in the paint. All right. And he does. So this is part of this whole thing, going hard in the paint. And the reason why he said he enjoyed it some, because he was blaming them, Asians, on the virus. And of course, that's impossible. That's ridiculous. All right. To blame all Asians on the virus. All right. Now, the thing is, though, he caught the virus. Dave Chappelle caught the virus. He stated it in the show. He caught it. All right. But then he also said he hardly got sick. Literally, he said, I got it, and I'm waiting for it to get worse. And he was quarantined for like 14 days. You know how they do it? They quarantine you for 14 days. And so he actually hardly got sick. Which again, it's making the point about everything is that I'm assuming that Mr. Chappelle had a strong immune system. And so he's a healthy young man, which he is. He's a healthy young man compared to me. He's a a healthy young man. So he hardly got sick. But again, this is what Mr. Chappelle does. He goes over the top, but just not all the way over the top. But he goes over the top. But again, it's easy to pick on Dave Chappelle. Okay? It's very easy. He's very famous. And if you know him, he loves Asian people. I think his wife's Asian. Okay? So, it is a joke. And I think that if my point here is, again, if you can't take a joke, if we can't laugh at things, and what it does is, and I really think that what Dave does is, what he wants you to do is he really wants you to think. He can say this stuff and it'll force you to have to make your own decision on whether or not, you think that's real or what it's not. So for most everything up until the show here, and I'm only going over some. He did lots and lots of stuff. So we're only going to go over some of the highlights on things like that. So watch his show and make the decision for yourself. Okay? All right, so another thing that came up was that Dave Chappelle hates women. Not just women, but all women. Okay? Basically saying how women are emotional and this and that, which is true. But again, I'm saying if you know and you've seen his comedy specials, he makes fun of the relationships between men and women. And that's been one of his big sticks for a long time, is making fun between men and women. And there's a lot of different comedians out there, which I'm going to bring up here down the road here, okay? All right, so here's another thing. UFOs. There's a lot of talk going on, but UFOs, that's a terrible imitation of Dave. And of course, there is all this talk about UFOs, which really now, that's a joke. I'm going to do a show on that coming down the road here. But the problem was that Dave said that the aliens were space Jews. So that got him in trouble with the Jews. So, Dave, like he kept saying, was, it gets worse than that. So each one of these times here, he goes, no, it gets worse than that. He goes, this is my last show. I'm going to say whatever I want. Which, again, maybe his last show. I don't know. He's still a young man. I can't see why he wouldn't take a couple years off and come back and do another one. So, now, here's another one, because it gets worse than that. He says he's going to write a children's book. Okay? And it's going to be a series, of the children's book. And basically, it's about a black man who talks like a white man. Okay? Which, as we know, and Dave's making a joke, Dave talks like a white guy. If you want to get down to it, which is not true, because language is language. Okay? And as any of you know, if you grew up, you have the ways you talk to your friends, the way you talk to your mom and dad, the way you talk to the teacher, the way you talk to the boss, the way you talk at church, the way you talk at Walmart, and etc. So there is no, you talk like that. Okay? Because everybody has to speak in all different manner. So basically what he says is, black man talks like a white man, to get a reservation at a dinner. He goes in, they recognize that he's black, and basically they shoot him. So, again, it's Dave's way of saying things that, and basically what I think a lot of his message is racism is here to stay and nothing's changed, which is not true. Okay? This is only about your money. Your behavior dictates that, but again, you got the money, baby, you can make it. So, it gets worse than that. So now, after he talks about that, he goes to the LBGTQ movement. Now, he's been getting a lot of fire from this. He's been getting a lot of fire from the LBGTQ movement because in his experience, he's met so many people that he felt like, well, I can crack on them. Now, I just want to say I have friends in the LBGTQ. I've met lots of lesbian people, bi people, trans people, gay people, people that are questioning. And so, I love everybody. I don't have to agree with you, but I don't have to, be the one to confront you. It's not my job. I'm busy living my life. You busy living your life. And it's hard no matter what movement we're in, guys. It doesn't matter. Every movement out there is getting bombed. So, the I'm just letting you know it gets worse. So the LBGTQ movement, he compared them and said, well, they have it better than black people. Right? They have it better than black people because he said, boy, in the last 2 years, their movement has been strong. And and if the black people were more like LGBTQ people, then their movement would have moved up. Now it was a joke, joke. So now he comes out and he says, can gay people be racist? And, here's the audience, it's like, yes or no, and they're like, yeah, they can. So he comes out and he says, well, okay, I have one for you. And he said, former Vice President Mike Pence is gay. Now, anyone who's seen Mike Pence knows he's a family guy. He's very a stoic individual. To me, he's got a family, the whole 9 yards. But again, it's really none of my business. But again, he said that for what? For shock value. And also to knock on the Republicans, which I'm assuming that Dave is not. Okay? If he's going to be anything, he's not. Okay? If I was going to say he's leaning one way or the other, But again, I would say he's more on the left. So, it's coming down to, does Chappelle have the right to say these things? You can ask yourself the question. Please put some comments down there on what you feel. If you saw the show, tell me what you think. Okay? I'm interested in seeing what you see. After you've seen it, please let me know. All right? Because I really would like to know about that. So does Chappelle have the right to say these things? Yes. He does. Okay? He has the right to say these things. Because he's a comedian. And I may not agree, which I tell you, I pretty much don't agree with 90% that's out there. I don't know what's going on. It's all about figuring out, and it's all in the numbers. I look in the numbers. That's why I follow Gematria. So I may not agree, but we're all still free. And it's to listen or not. You don't have to listen to it. You can turn it off. For the most part, You know, there's nothing that's really out there that you can continue to prove on here. We're all being bombarded from the left and to the right. And that's why part of this whole deal with me, I'm telling you about what wisdom is, what it's coming down to. That's why I'm sharing Mother Sophia's wisdom. Now, I'm telling you right now, free will, free speech is part of the process of being a great spiritual being, by the way. So I don't agree pretty much on anything that's coming through the media also. So I'm going to end with this. But I will fight for their right to say it. I do not believe in censorship. You really want to know somebody? Then let them speak what they believe. And then you can make your decision on your own. Because I'm an adult of my spirit. I'm an adult of my mind. I'm an adult of my thoughts. I'm an adult of my emotions. And I'm an adult of my decisions. And you be that too. And when you understand that who you are, you'll understand how understanding another person is complicated. And that we're all trying to work through this. And let's keep working it together. So, ALPOUGH. That's me. And I'll be back tomorrow to give you another show of ALPOUGH. Have a good one, everybody.